to MEELive. Join us as together we take another look at the stories shaping our world.
We are broadcasting live to YouTube and X from Middle East Eye's headquarters here in London.
I'm Mohammed Hassan.
And I'm Matilda Mallinson. Today is Thursday, the 12th of June. Mohammed, what have you got coming up for us?
So, in a couple of days' time, this huge UN summit is about to begin in New York that is set to, at least on paper, recognize a Palestinian state. It was co-hosted by Saudi Arabia and France, and they've been lobbying other countries around the world over the last couple of weeks, leading up to this momentous occasion. But there's one major hitch. Some of the countries that were supposed to be spearheading that, including France itself, are now having cold feet. So what exactly is happening, and what does it mean for this huge UN summit that we were waiting for? What does it mean for the two-state solution, and what does it mean especially for the ongoing genocide in Gaza? We're going to be joined live by the UK head of Human Rights Watch, Yasmin Ahmed, to tell us everything that she knows.
Now, while governments are apparently getting cold feet in this wave of Palestine solidarity, something we're seeing are civilians taking action into their own hands. We, of course, had the Freedom Flotilla. Now there is an aid convoy of thousands of volunteers marching across North Africa in the hopes of getting aid to Gaza, breaking Israel's siege, or at least doing so symbolically. But while these civilians know that they are acting independently of states, they may not have anticipated being actively blocked by states, particularly states that have long called themselves a friend of Palestine.
Right, and you're talking about Egypt, aren't you?
You guessed it. No spoilers. But yes, it appears Egypt has been detaining and deporting people who are arriving in the hopes of joining this convoy, which is read as quite a restrictive action when the convoy approaches Egypt, which will of course need to cross in order to reach the Rafah border. So we will be speaking to an organizer of the march and someone who has arrived in Cairo and is hoping to join the movement.
Plenty to get into, so let's start by going into today's headlines. An Israeli airstrike on Iran could be imminent, according to warnings by US and European officials amid growing tensions over Iran's nuclear arsenal. Israel has for months asked the US to cooperate in striking Iran's nuclear facilities while the country's leadership was vulnerable. The White House initially refused, in the hopes of rebuilding a nuclear deal with Iran after US President Donald Trump scrapped the existing one during his first term in office. But talks appear to have hit a road bump, with Trump admitting that he's now losing confidence.
Well, they're just asking for things that you can't do. They don't want to give up what they have to give up. You know what that is. They seek enrichment. We can't have enrichment. We want just the opposite. And so far, they're not there. I hate to say that because the alternative is a very, very dire one, but they're not there. They have given us their thoughts on the deal, and I said, it's just not acceptable.
Meanwhile, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN watchdog that monitors nuclear enrichment, condemned Iran for not complying with international nuclear safeguards for the first time in 20 years. Iran responded by announcing on state television that it would build a new uranium enrichment facility in a secure location. Despite the next round of nuclear talks between the US and Iran slated for Sunday, Israel has reportedly seized on Trump's growing pessimism to push again for a military strike. Iran has threatened to retaliate if it's attacked, including targeting US bases in the region. In response to that, the US has begun evacuating state personnel from Iraq, Bahrain, and Kuwait. Although Trump has warned Israel not to strike while talks are ongoing, he himself has repeatedly indicated he would resort to force if they fail. And whether or not Israel will wait for them to do so is yet to be seen.
Over 200 people appear to have been killed after a passenger plane travelling from India to London crashed moments after takeoff this morning. The Boeing jet carried 242 people, including 169 Indian nationals, 53 British citizens, 7 Portuguese and 1 Canadian. It was due to land in London's Gatwick Airport later today. Search and rescue efforts are ongoing at the crash site in a residential area of Ahmedabad, where the city police commissioner told reporters one survivor had been recovered, reportedly a British citizen sat in 11A. More than 100 bodies have been recovered from the crash site, but the total number of fatalities remains unclear as emergency services work through the wreckage.
Former British Prime Minister David Cameron could be criminally liable over threats he made to the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan. An exclusive investigation from MEELive revealed this week that Cameron, then Foreign Secretary, threatened to withdraw the UK from the Rome Statute and defund the ICC if it went ahead with arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. In a tense phone call in April 2024, Cameron told ICC Chief Karim Khan that prosecuting Israel over its war in Gaza was a huge mistake, and that issuing arrest warrants would be akin to dropping a hydrogen bomb. David Cameron hasn't responded to our request for comments, but several legal experts told MEE that under both British and ICC rules, the former Foreign Secretary could be investigated for attempting to obstruct the course of justice. Former Scottish First Minister Hamza Yusuf, who was in office when the incident occurred, told MEE he intends to call on the government for a formal investigation.
These are absolutely shocking revelations. And if true, then Lord Cameron has to be held to account. And I myself will be writing to the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, Emily Thornberry, to ask that committee to investigate. We are talking about a matter of the utmost seriousness here. We need to know whether a serving British Foreign Secretary at the time threatened to defund the International Criminal Court.
And you can read our exclusive reporting on David Cameron and the ICC by heading to our website at middleeasteye.net.
And finally, a US federal judge has ruled that the Trump administration can no longer detain or deport Columbia graduate Mahmoud Khalil based on claims he poses a threat to foreign policy. The court has ordered his release by tomorrow. However, the judge noted that Khalil could still remain in custody based on US officials' claims that he inaccurately filled out his green card application. Despite not facing any charges, Khalil was detained in March over his pro-Palestine activism at Columbia University. Held for 3 months in a detention facility in Louisiana, Khalil missed the birth of his child and only saw his wife once in that time. He is just one of several foreign residents in the Trump administration who have attempted to be deported in the administration's nationwide crackdowns on pro-Palestine speech and immigration. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in March that he'd revoked at least 300 student visas based on their pro-Palestine activism. The judgment is legally binding, but Trump has ignored court orders before. The president faces accusations of contempt of court over his defiance of a direct order to reverse 2 deportation flights to El Salvador in March. The government has been given until Friday to appeal the ruling or release Khalil. Next up, we speak to Human Rights Watch Director Yasmin Ahmed about whether Palestinian statehood could be recognized at next week's UN conference.
This is MEE's Deep Dive, where we dive into a story shaking up the world. Next week, the United Nations will host an international conference aimed at recognizing a Palestinian state. However, it appears some of its key backers are, well, backing out. France and Saudi Arabia are set to co-host the conference, which kicks off on the 17th of June in New York. And for the last few weeks, French President Emmanuel Macron was lobbying European leaders to join the call for recognition of Palestine. Others, like the UK Labour government, had initially signaled they were also considering supporting the move, which would have granted the motion significant momentum. That is, until earlier this week, when France and the UK reversed course, saying they no longer intended to go as far as immediate recognition and will instead set out conditions that must be met before a Palestinian state would be recognized in the future. So what happened? For one thing, the US and Israel have been aggressively lobbying allied governments behind the scenes to abandon the conference altogether. On Tuesday, a diplomatic cable sent from Washington warned countries against taking anti-Israel actions and said attending the conference would be viewed as acting against US foreign policy interests. That was followed by bombshell remarks from the US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, who suggested that the US may no longer pursue the goal of a two-state solution.
what does that Palestinian state look like?
Okay.
Where is it? Where is it going to be?
Well, what
does
are the
it have to be in Judea and Samaria? Does it need to be somewhere different? Does it need to be an opportunity for people to have a true place that is completely their own?
But
or is it going to be in the existing areas that are currently under the dominion of the PA? So there's a lot of questions. That's why I'm saying I don't believe anybody can say it's impossible, it'll never happen. But if someone wants to declare that this is the exact strip of geography that is going to be the future Palestinian state, that's where the complication comes from.
Well, maybe the word is exact. That's the problem. Are you suggesting that somewhere other than mandatory Palestine area, that it could be in Saudi Arabia or something? Or are you suggesting?
I'm just saying that I think every option should be and could be on the table.
So why have Western states been so tongue-tied over action on Gaza? And what does it mean for the prospect of bringing the genocide to an end? Well, joining us now is the UK Director of Human Rights Watch, Yasmin Ahmed. Yasmin, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start by getting your reaction to the U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, who seemed to be undermining the long-held position of the United States on the two-state solution. Now, the State Department has since said that Huckabee was only speaking for himself, but it does pose the question of whether the international consensus around the occupation is now being brought into question.
Yes, well, I think what's interesting about what you have discussed on the segment so far and this conference and what Huckabee has said is that actually the conference is actually a follow-on from the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion, which was issued over a year ago. The International Court of Justice being the apex UN court of the world. And that advisory opinion made very and absolutely clear that Israel's occupation is unlawful and the acts that it's carrying out within that occupation are unlawful as well. And so what we are saying as Human Rights Watch is, while obviously the issue of recognition is on the table, the court, the apex UN court, has made very clear that Israel must leave the occupied territories. And it has said that on the basis that it is unlawfully carrying out acts such as annexation, violating the right of self-determination, and also carrying out apartheid on the occupied territories. So for Human Rights Watch, what we are saying is this conference and this moment is critical to ensure that states are taking steps to give life to that advisory opinion. And the advisory opinion set out very clearly the obligations on states and what they should do. And one very clear step that they should be doing in light of this conference is taking the very simple step of banning settlement goods, which many states have failed to do so far.
Now, next week, that UN conference hosted by France and Saudi Arabia seemed like it was a last-ditch attempt at salvaging what was left of the two-state solution. Why are France and the UK now appearing to be backing out of taking action?
Well, look, it's interesting because what we have seen is quite a significant amount, albeit way too late, of multilateral action that has been taken in respect of Gaza and the West Bank recently. Obviously, the EU announced a review of the Israel-EU Association Agreement. The UK have suspended future trade talks and are reviewing the 2030 Israel-UK roadmap. And as your listeners will be aware, the UK and a number of other states have also sanctioned Ben-Gvir and Smotrich in relation to their statements and incitement of forced displacement of the Palestinian people, both in West Bank and also referred to in Gaza as well. But I think what we're saying with respect to this conference is that the conference must have tangible outcomes. If it fails to have any tangible outcomes in light of the situation that we're seeing on the ground in Gaza and the West Bank, it will be a failure of the international community as a whole. And there are clear steps that the international community and concrete steps that they must be taking now.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about the sanctions and the concrete steps, but let's stay with the conference for a little bit. Now, there's many prominent Palestinian voices that have been dismissive of the process of a two-state solution. They say that it's an impossible goal given the realities on the ground in the West Bank and now in Gaza. And as we speak, Israel is constructing 22 new illegal settlements. What would recognizing a Palestinian state, even on paper at this conference next week, what would it actually mean in real terms?
Well, Human Rights Watch doesn't speak to the question of a two-state solution. It falls somewhat out of our mandate. But I think, as I noted, what is very, very clear from a legal perspective, which is what we as Human Rights Watch do, we look at the law and push states to implement the law. And the law is very clear. The occupation is unlawful. Israel must leave the occupied territories. What it is doing in the occupied territories are the most serious international crimes that give rise to obligations of every state to stop them from happening. And what we have seen is some movement from states to stop them, but certainly not enough.
And you mentioned those sanctions that we saw at the start of the week against far-right Israeli ministers Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir that were brought by the UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and Norway. Do you think these sanctions have gone far enough to address the issue at hand?
No, the simple answer is absolutely not. And in fact, it goes back to the question you asked me about the two-state solution. If in fact what states are saying that they want to achieve, whether now or in the medium to long term, is in fact a two-state solution, then they should be taking concrete measures to address that. Now, obviously, it's welcome that they have sanctioned two Israeli ministers for their incitement to violence and inhumane acts in the West Bank, and they referenced Gaza as well. That is important. But they could be taking steps, and they need to be taking steps right now to dismantle the settlement enterprise. And that includes just merely stopping the trade in settlement goods and ensuring that no UK companies or companies in France, in Canada, in Germany or elsewhere are doing business in those settlements. There are very concrete measures that states could and should be taking now.
A lot of your work, Yasmin, involves lobbying the UK government to take action to end the genocide in Gaza. What has that process been like over the last few months? Have you been facing pushback from British lawmakers?
It's a very good question. Look, I think everybody who's listening to this and watching this will know, as it has been for us at Human Rights Watch and me as the UK director, it has been a horrific time to watch the ongoing genocidal acts, the crimes against humanity, the war crimes, day in, day out, being carried out against the people, Palestinians in Gaza. It's been horrific. We have been continuously engaging with UK government ministers and with officials. I would say that it has been frustrating at times, well, very, very frustrating at times. We have been pushing the UK government to take concrete steps, which they have done, but they have not gone far enough. Yes, they imposed an arms embargo, but it was a partial embargo. And what they did is they left a critical loophole that allows F-35 fighter jet components that are used by the IDF in Gaza for Israel to be able to get those supply of those components through a global supply pool. They've also not imposed a comprehensive arms embargo, which is absolutely necessary. There is no question right now that there is a serious risk of genocide. And that serious risk of genocide triggers an obligation on every single state in this world to ensure that they take concrete action to stop that genocide from continuing and that genocide from being carried out. And states, including the UK government, have acted too slow and have not taken and used all the leverage that they need to be using in this context.
Let's talk about the arms embargo and this issue of arms trade. You published a piece earlier this week saying that it was the elephant in the room of having any kind of conversation about what's happening in Gaza. The US, of course, is the primary supplier of weapons to Israel, but Germany, France, the UK, and Canada all supply weapons, or at least weapons parts, to Israel, and that has not stopped. What would it take, in your eyes, for real change to occur on this front?
Well, it's a very good question, because if it hasn't changed in light of what we're seeing on the ground and the multiplicity of evidence from human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, from the UN, from if that is not enough, I don't know what is enough to stop these governments from continuing to supply arms. As you will be aware, Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International are intervening in a case that is brought by Al-Haq and Global Legal Action Network, which is trying to stop the UK government from supplying the F-35 fighter jet components to this global supply pool that are then sourced by Israel, that are yet then used in Gaza. But the UK government is continuing, and they're being dragged kicking and screaming through the UK courts, arguing the most untenable legal arguments around why, in fact, it's lawful for them to continue to do this in the face of what is a clear and serious risk of genocide. So I hope that the legal case will be sufficient. I also hope that governments on their own back will see what is happening and ensure that they're taking the steps that are necessary. I mean, this is, if we're talking about a responsibility to protect people from the most serious atrocities that can be committed in this world, that is what we're seeing now. And for states not be using every piece of leverage and ensuring that they're not complicit is just unacceptable.
Yasmin Ahmed, the UK Director of Human Rights Watch, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now stay tuned as we turn now to Cairo, where pro-Palestine activists are gathering to join the North African aid convoy, but are being blocked from joining by Egyptian authorities.
السلام عليكم. لا شك أنكم سمعتم أن السلطات المصرية أرجعت العديد من الناشطين المغاربة الجزائر والأوروبيين الذين ذهبوا إلى القاهرة ليتضامنوا مع غزة وليطالبوا برفع الحصار عنها. وكأحد من هؤلاء أريد أن أشهد على ماذا جرى. إذا بعد وصولنا بتذكرة مطابقة والتأشيرة موجودة وكل شيء على ما يرام، احتجزونا لمدة فوق 3 ساعات. منهم قبلوا دخول بعض الأشخاص، وفي الطائرة ديالنا 12 شخصا أرجعوه. فهذه ليست طريقة دولة محترمة، بل هي أقرب إلى دولة بلطجية. النقطة الثانية وهي الأهم، هؤلاء الناشطين ما كان لهم أن يأتوا إلى مصر لو كانت مصر قامت بعملها وبواجبها بفك الحصار عن غزة، وعوض حتى بعد أن لم تقم بواجبها منعت الآخرين أن يضغطوا من أجل فك هذا الحصار. والسلام عليكم.
Egypt is deporting pro-Palestine activists on arrival, hampering efforts to grow the North African aid convoy on its march to break Israel's siege on Gaza. The apparent crackdown by Egyptian authorities has thrown the cross-continental march into jeopardy. Activists hoping to join the 1,500-strong march congregated in Cairo today, only to be met by detention and deportation at the hands of Egyptian authorities. Moroccans are reportedly being blanket banned from entering, and activists tell us they are concealing the purpose of their travel from officials, even disposing of phones in their bid to reach the convoy. It comes after Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz called on Egypt to block the convoy from reaching the enclave's border. Egypt's government has said people must apply for permits to visit the border area, though it's unclear whether any will be granted as border authorities turn away valid visa holders at international arrivals. MEE spoke to organiser Saif Abu Kashek about the threat posed by Egyptian authorities. He called on Palestine's neighbour state for allegiance.
So Egypt talks about to allow humanitarian aid to go to Gaza. We support the same demand. They call for an end to genocide. Yeah. We support the same demand. They are against the displacement of Palestinian people. Yeah. We support the same demand. So I think we are on the same side. I mean, from our perspective, we look to Egypt as an ally, as an important element that can allow this march to succeed. Mm-hmm. And we haven't done any we did take any step that would them think otherwise. We didn't organize inside Egypt. We have no Egyptian delegation. We are not mobilizing in Cairo. We are going by buses not to create any kind of public gatherings. Yeah. And at the same time, we have contacted officially all the different embassies. We had meetings with some of the ambassadors that were positive meetings. Yeah. We sent letters on behalf of the movement by parliamentarian members directly to the foreign affairs in Egypt.
Yeah.
So we have done all those steps. And we really hope that Egypt will take that in consideration and will look to this as a positive, peaceful march and will cooperate in organizing and allowing this march to go.
The march is composed of mostly Algerian, Tunisian, Moroccan and Libyan citizens, but has members who have travelled across continents. It is the latest civilian effort to break Israel's restrictions on aid from reaching Gaza. On Monday, Israel intercepted the Madleen aid ship in international waters, deporting crew members such as Greta Thunberg as they carried aid with the Freedom Flotilla. 2 crew members remain in detention. Whether or not the land convoy enters Gaza, the decision by civilians to respond to scenes of starvation in Gaza mounts pressure not just on Israel's government, but the governments of all those involved. Earlier today, MEE reporter Mohammed Salah spoke to one volunteer who is waiting to join the convoy. British human rights lawyer Usman Noor arrived in Cairo a few days ago.
So why did you join the march itself, and what do the days ahead look like for the march?
My own reason is this is the most important issue in the world. No system of oppression can be truly dealt with until we tackle the most egregious form of it. What Israel is doing in Palestine is beyond repugnant. It is the worst type of atrocity. And so no other type of justice can be said to be dealt with unless this injustice is dealt with. So I am, by background, a refugee lawyer. So I've represented people from conflict areas all over the world. And I think if we can unite, as we are uniting, to create the power of human solidarity, the power of compassion to change the system, we will have achieved something that all on. It's a proud moment for humanity. So I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to show that we are going to be with the people of Gaza, no matter potential inconvenience or cost to us, a demonstration of that solidarity.
Very good. And the global march to Gaza requires a lot of logistics. Can you tell us a bit about the logistics, and do you expect to make it to Gaza?
This has been a truly bottom-up movement. There's no particular organizer, no particular figurehead. It is funded by the individuals who are going. We've all paid for our own costs. But the logistics is required, as you know, quite a lot of organization. And so efforts have been made over several months to seek the permission of the Egyptian authorities to do this march. And as far as we're aware, the authorities have not forbidden it. And then that's why we've come here to be good to our word and show the people of Gaza that we will be with them. So people from all over the world in different delegations from different countries. We've joined different delegations for our own logistical organization. But the plan is that we get a coach to Al Arish, which is around 50 kilometers from the Rafah border crossing, and then we walk in the desert the same length of the length of Gaza. So the walk is also symbolic of the people in Gaza have been walking, escaping the bombing campaign from Israel for the last 20% thought. Let's walk that distance as a representation of our connection to them.
Okay, and why now for this march? Why this particular time? This comes, of course, 19 to 20 months after the war broke out. Why now?
This march ideally should have taken place a long time ago. We are here now, having been inspired by the Freedom Flotilla's actions, the pioneers that decided to take matters into their own hands and to break the siege. So this culmination of energy that has been on around the world, this demand that people have been making that Israel stop genocide, the failure of the international community sanction and embargo Israel has resulted in the realization around the world that humans, if we are going to do what we say, that we have to take matters into our hands and actually go ourselves. So it is the culmination of a long process of realization that states are failing to and forward decided that if humanity needs to unite, then we need to do it now. We are inspired by the actions of the Freedom Flotilla, the direct action to try to break the siege. I feel like we need to deliver the message to the people of Gaza that we will not abandon them. So we are coming as close as possible, as humanly possible, to the people of Gaza to show them that their pain is our pain, their suffering is our suffering, and their liberation will be our liberation. We will not abandon the people of Gaza.
Very good. And of course, you mentioned the Madeleine Gaza Freedom Flotilla. So on the back of the Madeleine being intercepted by Israeli forces and the crew members being detained, what do you anticipate, and what does the Global March to Gaza, what do they anticipate in terms of restrictions or things they may face?
Well, we know that we won't be able to get into Gaza, so we're going as close as possible. That will be the Egyptian border in Rafah. We're not going to be able to climb the gates, and that's not our intention. We are there to primarily tell the people of Gaza that we are coming as close as humanly possible to them, so that they know that we are one with them, so that they know that we are not going to abandon them. So we are going to make demands at the border, which is for Israel to end its unlawful occupation, to allow unhindered aid into Gaza, to stop the genocide, and for there to be a permanent ceasefire. So those are the demands that we will be making, and we want to do it as close as possible. So the Egyptian authorities, we're here to talk about Egypt. We're here to talk what Israel is doing. It is Israel that is committing genocide. It is Israel that is blocking aid. It is Israel that has conducted the worst bombing campaign in world history. So we are here in Egypt because it has a border with the people in Gaza, and that's why we're here. But it is the spotlight here is on Israel.
Very important, of course. What kind of security risks are there along the way for yourself and for your fellow activists taking part in this march?
Well, many of the people who have come have never been to Egypt before. Many people are not speaking Arabic. Many people who are elderly or young. And so we are a really mixed group of people representing a cross-section of really the whole of humanity from all over the world. So in terms of risks, of course, you have the ordinary risks associated with walking 50 kilometers in June in the desert to get to Gaza. So we have those logistical challenges, making sure everyone has adequate food, adequate tents, sleeping in tents, of course, for 3 days. But we also want to be aware, we are coming close to the border where Israel is committing genocide, and obviously that means Israel is going to try to attempt to disrupt our work. They are already, I think, going to tell the Egyptian authorities to attend this march. So we be cognizant of the risk. Really, no risk that we face is anything like Gaza who are facing extermination. So yes, there may be risks, but willing to take risks because we're not going to back down. We're not going to stop until Palestine is free and the siege is broken. So we have to be willing to take those risks to show our solidarity and achieve this event.
Very good. And what's your message to maybe some critics of this movement? There have been some critics from within Egypt and from other places. What are your messages to the critics?
The world is uniting for Palestine. The whole political system around the world, systems around the world are uniting for Palestine. It is the cause of the century, I believe. And so realize the trajectory of this movement and join it. At 78 years, naysayers of people who don't think that Palestine can be, but we are here to show them the exact opposite. So know when you're losing and join this.
Very good, thank you. And lastly, just kind of like a realistic question of once you get to the Rafah border or as close to the Rafah border as the march is able to get. What do you expect? What will the plan be then? What do you want to convey to the people in Gaza, and what do you want to convey to international audiences and authorities who have power to change the current situation in Gaza? Considering also that the Rafah border is a heavily securitized, heavily militarized area.
Well, this shows, I think, the people of Palestine is that many people are moving, crossing borders, willing to unite and actually undergo challenges to be with them. So it's a testament to our sense of oneness with the people of Gaza. And I hope that they take some courage from that. And that is, of course, the primary concern on their mind, but they should, I hope, take some comfort from knowing that they are never abandoned. That's also the message that we give to the rest of the world as well. The political message we make is to Israel to stop what it is doing, and for them to know how much we are willing to undergo in order to achieve that goal of stopping this genocide. And I think when we get to the border crossing, will be a moment where people from all over the world will be together in our love and solidarity for the Palestinian people. And I hope ourselves, we can also take courage and comfort from that. Many of us have been working individually or perhaps as organizations in specific countries, but this will be a global, a truly global gathering. And that, I think, will give confidence to other activists from all over the world that, yes, the world is uniting, and we will never stop. So we should carry on what we're doing.
And hopefully we'll follow up with you over the next few days. Thank you very much, Osman, joining us from Cairo, Egypt.
Thank you so much.
That was MEE reporter Mohammed Salah speaking to human rights lawyer and aid convoy volunteer Osman Noor.
And that's all the time that we have for you today. But before we lose you, we would love to hear from you.
Please do send in your thoughts and questions. You can comment on the YouTube, contact us on social media at Middle East Eye, or email meelive@middleeasteye.net.
And make sure you hit that notification bell so you know exactly when we're going live. It happens right here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5 p.m. UK time, 12 p.m. New York.
See you then.